On Monday, February 13th, myself and former Notre Dame captain and linebacker Mike Goolsby had a YouTube live show where we discussed several Notre Dame topics, including the likely addition of Andy Ludwig, Utah's offensive coordinator, to take the same position at Notre Dame staff. In about a half hour to an hour after we ended our live show, news broke from Pete Thamel of ESPN that Ludwig is staying at Utah. Quote from Thamel, his buyout proved an obstacle in discussions with Notre Dame. Really, really interesting stuff and a lot to unpack here. First, Ludwig was at Notre Dame this past weekend. He was seen at the hockey game. He was on TV. Everyone knew about it. He was front and center. Notre Dame, look, had him at the hockey game, had to, and then Marcus Freeman and those guys had to know that people would see Andy Ludwig. I really thought this was Notre Dame's way of saying, hey, Ludwig is our guy. Here he is for everyone to see him at Notre Dame. And you even had Pete Sampson of The Athletic tweet the same. He said, this is a bit of a shock considering the optimism around Notre Dame regarding Andy Ludwig replacing Tommy Rees as offensive coordinator. Ludwig interviewed in South Bend last weekend. Everything I'd been told reflects what Pete had to say as well. Notre Dame sources thought that this was looking really good. Everyone I talked to felt that way. So for the buyouts, which Notre Dame had to have known about to be the reason it didn't happen, certainly interesting. You had the footballscoop.com posted this on their website. This was from Monday night, adding to Thamel's report. Sources tell Football Scoop between Ludwig's buyout and Jim Harding's, who is the Utah offensive line coach, Notre Dame was facing a buyout bill approaching $4 million. Now it's believed that Ludwig's buyout was about $2.8 million, and by simple math, you have to assume Harding's was $1.2 million. Of course, Harry Hiestand retired, so Notre Dame wanted Jim Harding to come, to Notre Dame with Ludwig, but that obviously didn't happen. And it's really interesting, folks, to kind of look at why Notre Dame wasn't able to pay the buyout, especially considering like a tweet like this from Stuart Mandel, who said Notre Dame will pay $2.8 million to buy out a coach in the SEC. That's called closing costs. A couple other interesting tweets here from Jack Sacco. He says, Notre Dame, you have perhaps the largest and wealthiest fan base in the world. Please support Marcus Freeman and give him whatever he needs to win a national championship. Otherwise, you bring misery on all Notre Dame fans, including the ones who donated the cash for that $18 billion endowment. And he also tweeted, by the way, the point I'm making is not that Notre Dame should use their endowment for sports, but they have generous donors who would gladly cover the cost of a buyout if it meant getting the offensive coordinator that Coach Freeman wants. This whole situation is puzzling. But before, and look, I already know by the time you're watching this video, you've probably drawn out the pitchforks. You've been angry tweeting and message board posting, which hopefully you've been message board posting on the loose emoji board at blueandgold.com. But listen, one tweet from Thamel and a report from Football Scoop just saying, hey, the buyout was a factor here. That doesn't, there's so much more that we don't know about this situation that could have made it, not just the buyout. One person I talked to today told me that the buyout was not the reason that Ludwig is not going to Notre Dame. Now, where is the truth? It lies somewhere in the middle. Like, yeah, I was told that Ludwig just wanted to stay at Utah and that this is the story that's come out there. Thamel's one of the most well-respected reporters there is. I'm probably going to side with what he put out. But still, guys, there's just so much out there that you just can't know for sure. So, again, I would just pump the brakes a little bit until we get more information on it. But still, the optics here do not look good for Notre Dame. If Ludwig and Harding are the guys they wanted for offensive coordinator and offensive line coach respectively, you think they would have just put out the money and gone after them, especially considering, hey, Rees and Notre Dame is a private university, so you're not going to have the coach's contract information. But when Alabama's poached Tommy Rees, there was a buyout there, so Notre Dame at least had that. So I get all the logic there, but I would just tell folks to pump the brakes a little bit. Try not to lose your brains on this. We don't have the full story Hopefully that comes out at some point, whether it's from myself or other sources, media outlets out there. But until we get that, hey, I'm not going to be the one who casts the stone. But again, really interesting stuff here. Andy Ludwig is staying at Utah. So Notre Dame's top 2 offensive coordinator targets look to be Ludwig from Utah and Colin Klein from Kansas State. Both guys were on campus in the past week. Both are staying with their school. So Notre Dame, where they turn from here, we'll see. You have Jared Parker, who's on staff, who has offensive coordinator experience. He will be someone to keep an eye on, but I do think that Notre Dame is kind of just resetting this offensive coordinator search, going back to square one, basically. So it'll be something to keep an eye on. And of course, blueandgold.com will have all of the coverage of this, and we'll have more reaction right here on our blueandgold.com YouTube channel. Please do hit the thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more content, and as always, we'll catch you next time.